So let's just start with like Google Summer of Code, like which you all could probably relate to. Like I got selected in Google Summer of Code in like second year and third year of college. So how did I like prepare for it? So let's just make a like let me just make a base for it. So I joined in electrical engineering department in 2013 batch, and at first year like I was already very much interested in programming, so it was not like I started from very beginning. I had a little bit of experience with C++ and all those things, so that like actually gave me an edge, I would say. But like if you don't have any experience with that, then also it's okay. Like I had very basic knowledge of those things which you can get in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. Now like in first year, the basic thing like which everyone generally goes through is like the competitive programming, code shape, code forces, and all those things. I also saw those. I also got very fascinated, and yeah, like I saw so many people doing like 6 out of 8 questions in CodeSafe long contest. So I was very fascinated. I tried also, but I could do like 3 or maximum 4 questions there. So like instead of just following everyone, like you have like a lot of avenues in programming. The problem mostly I think people do is they just see one thing, competitive coding, and just go after it like with everything. And if even if they are not doing good there, they don't like try to explore other areas. So like if you try to explore, if you try to find exactly where you fit in, like you fit better or your talents are better useful, then it will be much better for you. So for example, I tried like computer programming for 3 4 months, maybe maximum 5 months. After that I was sure that it is not for me. So I just like I became good enough so that I can clear first round of companies. Like it's very important that you know good enough competitive programming that you can do at least 2 questions in CodeSafe short contest. Like in CodeSafe short contest, there are like 4 questions, I think. Yeah. So if you can do two of them, just be happy with it. Like you know enough that you can pass any coding interview. So you don't need to necessarily know more than that. So like as a basic, prepare that much and then explore other avenues. So for example, like there is capture the flag contest, which many of my friends used to do. I never tried that because like I started like these projects and all those sort of things because I got to know about GSOC at that point. And I didn't really like prepare as such, I would say. But yeah, like the GSOC applications, they come in around April time. No, sorry. GSOC applications come in February time, and they declare the results of who gets selected in April time. So I started around, I would say like December or January only. But what I did was I went through all the resources. I saw all the like selection criteria and everything, and I started interacting with the companies immediately. For example, like I came to know that some companies like Boost and all these very like sought after companies, they have like 8 slots in GSOC, so they get to select like 8 students. If you get to know all these things, like which are the new companies, which are the old companies, the companies which have participated in GSOC for many years, they get more slots, so you know which companies to target. Now like there is a dilemma, like if the bigger the company, the more applicants it will have, so the more competition there will be, but they can also select more students, and the smaller the company, like less slots they'll get and all those things. So try to like see all these things and then try to go after the companies. I have like written a very good article, I would say, in last year's college magazine about GSOC and all those. So for the very like very in-depth knowledge of exactly all these process and all, I would suggest you try to read that, because like whatever I'll say now, that will be just the replica of that. So I'll not say that. Uh, for people who are not in CSC, I'll basically like just want to say some things about if you want to go in software jobs, because those will be the most sought after. So like if you're not in CSC, what should you do? You should basically think about starting your like what can I say? If you're not, sorry, I'll just say start with very small things. Like think of one aim. For example, let's say you have never done programming, but you want to make something. Let's think of one project, anything. Let's first, for example, think of an MP3 player. So you know there are a lot of MP3 players. So you don't necessarily have to make one. But if you don't make anything, you will reach nowhere. And if you just randomly start searching internet, googling tutorials, and copying pasting code, you will reach nowhere. Like you will not make anything. You will not get that satisfaction of having made something, having like your final project or something at your end. So I would say it's much more important to have a goal and then work towards it. So for example, I thought I'll make a MP3 player. What I did, I found how to play music. So like you need some sort of sound library, because you are not going to be able to write code to read all sort of files like WAV, MP3, AAC, and all those things. So it's better you have a library, you call the functions in that, and then you see can you run a file or not. So after that part is done, you are good. Like you can play a sounds now. Now what's left? An MP3 player needs to have a buttons and GUI. So you try to search a library for that. Now you got a GUI library, let's say Qt in C++, and then you went through it. You made a small GUI, a calculator or something, and then you made the like integrated the music playing functions with your GUI functions, and you got an MP3 player. So if you work on it like that, you will have your very fully functioning software very easily. Like it will be within 1 month, I think you can make an MP3 player. So if you have like goals like that, it will be much easier to achieve because they will be very quantifiable what you want to do, instead of having like I want to learn something in software development and make something. So like have a very specific set of goals, I would say. Other than that, like for companies and software preparation, yeah, just as I said, go after competitive programming. That's definitely necessary. So like be able to do two questions in Coursera short contest and at least like three questions in Coursera long contest. If you can do that, you are good enough. You don't need to worry about learning more. Yeah. So that's all I can say about like competitive programming and all that. Other than that, I would say in college, mostly like people get very much focused towards the results. Like people are very happy, like, um, how do I put it? I'll say like you see the end goal, like he got 15 lakh package. So I want that. So if you see that, you will never be able to learn programming good enough to be able to get that. So what you should do instead, I would recommend is just try to think what he did to get there. Like someone made some softwares or some projects he worked on. So you need to learn to make those. If you learn to make those softwares, you'll automatically get a nice job, and you'll automatically get to be where you want to be. So yeah, like mainly try to generate interest by yourself, because like I'll only talk about softwares. If you have like interest about electronics and all those things, you can definitely try to generate interest in those and all, and then you can definitely get good results there also. But yeah, it completely depends on the process, so try to focus on the process, not the result. Like that will be very, what can I say, that will be very like I forgot the word. Everyone says like in every seminar, every lecture, you will see this try to focus on the process. But it's definitely something that people ignore. I know many people in my college, like even in my batch, used to come to me, ask me how do I prepare, how do I make something, or how do I try to clear GSOC. And after meeting me, after writing down many points, they never did anything. That's definitely I know. They never did anything. They never had any doubts. They never did, like they never wanted to indulge in the process. They wanted to know how people reach there, so they could feel like they are doing something to reach there, but they didn't actually do anything because they didn't have interest in the process. They only had interest in the final result. So, but for me, it was like I had interest in programming. I didn't have interest in a job at Microsoft or a job at a good company. From very beginning of my college life, even I was very much focused on what I can program. Like, can I make a MP3 player or not? Can I make a Paint software in C++ or not? Can I learn C# or not? like very much focus on the process, and I'll definitely guarantee like you'll reach what wherever you want to go. And that, like that point, I definitely cannot stress enough. Like even let's say studies, people want to get 9 pointer, but they don't want to work for it. Like the 9 pointer is very good, something that everyone wants, but the process of reading is something that no one wants to do. So if you don't like the process, how will you get reach the goal? So that's definitely something that you need to think about. For example, yeah, like you want to be a software engineer, but you have never done programming, or you think about doing programming, but you never actually get to it. So how will you be a software programmer? It's very simple. Like I did not do anything other than that. I just focused on the process. Like I want to be a software programmer. I love this. So in college, like 99% of students don't study before exams. That's very, very like clear. Like if you're not 9.9 or 9.8 pointer, I don't think you study any day before exams. And that was true in my case also. I didn't used to study before exams. So the rest of the time, what will you do? Like people say, chill and enjoy life and all those things. That those are good, definitely good. Enjoy with your friends. Spend like in one day, how much time do you have? If you attend classes, then also you have like 10, 15 hours for yourself, and in that, at least get out 1 hour, just 1 hour. If you can get 1 hour out of every day and focus on something, anything, any skill that you want to develop, you will definitely be successful. Like there is no as such any special thing that people do to get success. They just do this. Like they know that they want to do something, so they go through the process of it and they reach it. It's as simple as that. Like there is definitely no magic or anything going on here. Other than that, I don't really have much to share. I'll just like that's all. Like I'll just look at for your questions, and yeah. Yeah, life at Microsoft. Okay, so let me share that. In okay, in any like corporate world, it will be completely different from your college life. So, like in college, you always think that the professor will tell me this, I have to do this, so I'll do this, like, and I'll get this many marks. In corporate life, you are immediately expected that you are a mature person, fully grown up, and can think for yourself. No one, like your manager is not there to be your professor. A manager is not there to be your controller, I would say. Yeah, a manager is just there to guide you. So you tell your manager what you want to achieve, and your manager helps you achieve that. And this I have seen, like many people fail at this. Definitely they fail at this. Like they think that okay, I'll go to office, my manager will tell me do this project, do that project, and I'll be happy. But if you are like that, you will never get anything good. And then people wonder like why am I not getting the promotion, why am I not getting anything like rewards and all those things. That's because you are not in college anymore. You are the manager is not there to tell you what to do. The manager is just there to help you in achieving what you want to achieve. And this is something that people don't like understand immediately. Many college graduates just go to corporate offices and immediately just rely completely on some mentor or on some manager that they'll just show me the path, like this is the path, just walk on it. That wouldn't work in a corporate world, and that is something that people take a lot of time to get used to. But that's still okay in a company like Microsoft. Like I was in Japan in works application, so there it was like very much Japanese culture and like very very hierarchical thing. So it was still okay because the managers were in Japan. It's just like the in old Japanese companies, the culture is like that. The manager is supposed to be your father figure, sort of. So he'll take care of everything. But if you are in a startup or something, that wouldn't work definitely. Like there, you would be expected to deliver on what you are hired for, not that your manager will or not that your manager will pave that path for you. So yeah, look out for that. Like if you're in fourth year or something, just look out for your like motives at the start. Like when if you're going to join some company, don't rely on people to give you everything. Go there, spend like 6 months, 10 months maybe, to understand everything that is there, and then by your own self try to put your flavor to things. Like talk to your manager, talk to people that, okay, I'm doing this project, but I like that project, or how can I get to know this? And that will help you. That will definitely help you. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that is the only advice for people going to corporate world that I can give. I do not want to like say anything more because it will again like feel like just a lecture sort of thing and people will forget about it. So yeah, let's just hear your questions and I can try to answer.
All right. So we had floated a Google form, and I'd like handpicked questions from that. I think we can start with that. That
Okay.
would be good. If
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
has any questions, you guys can like spam the chat, like put it in the chat, and that will be answered as well. So like to start off, let's go to like very simple questions, like a generic question, which is how and when did you start coding?
Hmm. I started coding in class 8th, if I would say, because like my school had this sort of book which came from a different company, some private company, and they used to put some uh, extra lessons at the end of every book, and the teacher didn't used to teach them. Definitely they were extra lessons, but I just like C++ and all those. I picked it up, so I did some things there, but it was not like like it was not like I achieved anything good there. I like made small programs, factorial and all those things. So that is how I started it. But yeah, in college I like picked up it a lot. Like every day I used to like, every time if I had at least 4 to 5 different projects that I was working on, at least from myself or with other people. Like if you try to showcase, like I remember even in first semester I went to the podium, like all we were three batches then only, electrical, CSC and mechanical. So all 180 people are there. I went to the podium where the teacher used to be when the teacher was not there, to pick up the mic and started speaking like, I want to do some projects and all this, and if anyone would like to join. I got like many responses, and we like, some people made the MP3, some people made GUI and all those things. So like if you initiate something, you will get people to join you, but nobody wants to be the initiator. That's the difference that I saw. So in college, I picked it up a lot and I joined a lot of projects. Like many people used to just come to me that I want to develop this, let's develop this together. And I was very happy, like, okay, let's do it. Like, why not? And in that way, like I got two patents in college, and both of them were not my idea. People knew that I am interested in development. So when they had some idea about something that they wanted to develop, they came to me. I worked with them and we developed something and we got patents for it. So in that sense, like yeah, just start anytime, but initiate things. Try to work in groups. Something you will not understand, your other member will understand, and that will like generate a lot of output. Like a lot of output you can do with this bunch of people that you are together with. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's that's a great answer. I like it. And now, I think you were the first GSOC student from our college. So, like, how did you get to know? Like, I knew about GSOC just because
Mhm.
my senior, Mohit Mota,
Yeah, yeah,
he did it. So
yeah.
that's he introduced it to me. So, like, how what was your introduction to GSOC? How did you get to
Uh,
know the GSOC?
what happened was, yeah, I was doing this competitive programming and all, and I only knew about that because that's the only thing that you get to know in college in first semester, I think. And I was like not good at it. Like I told you, right? I could do like two questions, three questions, at max four questions in long contest if I tried very hard. After that, I couldn't do anything. Like it didn't even strike me how to do the next question or how to even start trying. So I was so fed up, like this is something that I have no idea about. So this field is something that is not for me. So then I started just looking around. I started making projects on my own. And then like if you just look around internet trying to do projects, you'll come across a lot of information. So I somehow came across this GSOC thing, that okay, Google gives you money to work in open source projects. So that was like very fascinating. Like I like to work on something that like that I can say is a full project. I don't feel like competitive programming is a full project because Like whatever you develop is very niche and very specific for some inputs and all, not related to any users and all that. So yeah, so that idea of having to work on projects, I just started exploring and came across this GSOC thing. And after I came across this, I was very much fascinated, and yeah, and obviously there is money involved. So tried also a lot, like gave it my best, and yeah.
Yeah, and a question related to that as well. How do you think GSOC has helped you in your day job?
Sorry.
How has GSOC helped you in
Mhm.
your day job? Has it helped in your day job?
Okay, how a GSOC help? Yeah, yeah. Okay. So what happens is, see, like if you develop something, right, or if you develop something in a group, that will be like you'll get something, you'll get very good satisfaction, but the quality of it will be very low. Like it will be harsh when you start contributing to open source projects, because you will have a lot of comments. Like my first contribution to an open source project, I remember I sent some change, very small change, like it was like 2 or 3 lines change, and there we had like so long discussion that this is not done this way in our project, or this coding standard is not is not what we prefer, use four spaces, or give this comment in that way, or put this line. And like it took 1 month to get it merged, get it into that project, like my smallest change. So when you start contributing to open source, you get to know like hundreds of people are reviewing your code. They'll get to tell you that this is not good, this is not good, and it will hurt. It will definitely hurt. That I wrote it, I thought like this is such a small change, and this is like 2 lines, and how can people figure out like point mistakes in that? And then you learn that okay, so you should have some sort of coding style, some functions you should not use, like you should not edit files which are something like that. So when you start doing that, then you get to know what is a industry standard, because open source software generally, like all the big ones, they are definitely at industry standards. So if you get in that zone, you get to learn those things. Yeah, then it will definitely help in your corporate life, because in corporate life it's the same, that is the expectation from people. So you are expected to write code which is industry standard, not something which you will use in your pet projects. And that definitely changed my coding style a lot. Definitely.
All right. Another question. From your LinkedIn, I saw that you have dabbled in a lot of areas, be it
Mhm.
research, game development, electronics, or open source. So, which of these areas do you like the most? Do you have a favorite?
Mhm. Yeah, like at uh, like everyone, I had phases in life. So like at one point, I had like very much interest in electronics. I wanted to be an electronic engineer, Raspberry Pi and Arduino and all those things. I did a lot. Then at one point, I was like GSOC, 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 and like so. I guess it depends on which time you are talking about, but right now I'd say mainly just user-centric software development. That would be my best.
All right. Right. And it's an EE specific question. As an EE major, was it ever hard to secure jobs and internships?
No, actually, it was much easier. What happened, I'll tell you. Sudhakar, if you know, he said this when I tried to appear for Amazon interviews for internships. He said that you will definitely get the internship from EE quota. So it was like that. That when you go as an EE person to a CSC interview, they expect much less of you. They do not put you on the same standards that other CSC people. At least that was my experience. Like if a CSC person goes, they expect them to know graph theory and like primes algorithm and all those things by heart, because you have been taught that in college, you have been taught in your classes. But as an EE person, you are not taught that in classes. But there you should be able to tell the interviewer something that you know. Like I didn't go and just tell that I am from EE, I don't know anything, so they will not take me. What I did was, in my first 2 3 years, I did a lot of projects with a lot of people, put them on GitHub to like to be publicly visible. I wrote them all on my resume, went to the interviewers, and just like my first sentence was, I'm from CSC. So like the standard algorithms, I know some, but I don't know a lot. And I have worked on these projects. You can see my resume, and you can talk, ask me anything about them. So that was a very good starter for an interview, and that made the interview a lot in my favor. So like they never expected me to know what they expected the CSE people to know. They only talked to me about my projects, about what I have done, and that made it very easy for me.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective that I've never heard. Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
so
that's great.
like, so in for that perspective to work though, just remember that you should give them something to ask. You can't say that no, I am from E, so I don't know this. That's not the whole picture. The whole picture is I am from E, so I don't know that, but I have done this. So please let me showcase my talent in this thing, in software development, in these projects, or in open source or something. You should have something for them to ask you questions from. So bank on your talents, bank on something that you have done.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Moving on to the next question. What can you describe your method of learning new languages?
Hmm. Learning new languages, I would say, like, don't go around learning languages just for writing them in your resume. Learn one language and do a lot of projects on it, because the language doesn't really matter. If you know C or C++, you'll learn Java in very few minutes. If you know Java, you will learn C sharp or C++ in few minutes. Like, except the pointers and all those things, like, except very deep understanding of the language, you can use it definitely. So if learn one language and do projects in that language. And other than that, if you really want to learn other languages, just start like, okay. So 1 year back or 1.5 year back, I wanted to learn Rust. What I did was, I like just learning a language is very easy. You'll go through tutorials and learn it. But what I like to do, as in everything, is make a project out of it. So me and one more person was there in my last company in Works Applications. We decided that we'll make a NES emulator. So the emulator to run NES games, the Super Mario Brothers and all those things. So how to do that? We went through other people's tutorials who made NES emulators. So someone made it in C Sharp, someone made it in Java. So we went through their tutorials, how they are doing it. We got the logic from there, and then we tried to implement it in Rust. There was no NES emulator written in Rust, so we couldn't just copy paste the code, and that was the best part, because we are making something and we are not copying pasting everything. We are going through the logic, we are trying to implement it, and now, like, most of the things are same, like int x is equals to 1, so that will be same. But for example, to run threads, how to run threads now? So to run the graphics thread, we need to know how to run threads. Go through a small tutorial of running a thread, make a small program of printing 1 2 3 4 in a thread, and then you'll know the threads. So use that in your project. So I think, yeah, developing a project is the best fall. So you'll have something to show for it, obviously.
Yeah. And moving on to the next question. I'm not sure how to put this question, but this was one of the audience questions.
Yeah.
It asks, how should a non-CS guy aim for a job at FAN?
Hmm. I would say, like, exactly what I have said till now. Do some projects. You're a non-CS guy, so either do one of two things. Like in interviews, you are either expected to know all the algorithms, or you're expected to have enough material that they want you for that, if even if you don't have algorithm. So either you go through all the, like, C++, like all the CodeChef and all these long contest, and do 6 or 7 questions from there. If you're doing that, you'll definitely get through all the interviews, and that will be easy for you. But if that is difficult, try to do projects. Like, try to do something else. Try to do capture the flag contest. Anything that you like. Like, there are a lot of avenues in programming. Try to focus on something. For example, you learn UI development, React JS, and all those things. If you like that, if you are interested in that, just focus on that. Have some strong point. Any strong point is okay. You just have a strong point. Don't just say that I don't know programming. How will I get a job in that? Every FAN company needs a UI developer. Every FAN company needs a Java backend developer. Every FAN company needs a C++ embedded programming developer. Every FAN company needs those, because all of the FAN companies are huge, and they, like, except Netflix, all of them are so huge that they have all the, like, departments, and they need every type of programmer. So if you really want to get a job at any FAN company, get a strong point. and any strong point is okay as long as it's a strong point. So like you are very strong in embedded development, you are very strong in GUI development. Just pick one thing which you like. Try different things. Definitely try. Like for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, try UI. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, try embedded. All that, and just like develop one quality. I'd say, and it will be easy. Like if you have one quality, you can tell the interviewer that I have this quality and this is very strong. For freshers, they don't hire for specific teams. For freshers, they just hire talent, and after that you will be assigned to a particular team. So as a fresher, it's very easy to get into FAANG companies if you have anything which is strong for you.
So yeah, I think the next question is kind of related to that as well, like
Mhm.
what you talked about freshers. So the question is, how is the role of SDE2 different from the role of SDE1?
Okay, so one thing is that as a fresher, you are SD1, you are not really expected to drive anything. Like you, if you drive, that's good. But as an SD1, you are expected that the seniors and all those will do the system design part, and you will be given the coding part. So in the coding part, you will need to do some design, as in like how will you structure the classes, which function will call what, and all those things. But you're not expected to design the system. Design the system as in, for example, something is required for millions of users, so you don't need to know how to set up the servers, how to like how to do multi-threading or all those things. You will not be expected to know. As a fresher, you will be just expected to know basic programming and just go through the system and understand everything. But as an SD2 or as a senior, you would be expected to know how to drive that. Like just not to drive the coding part, but to drive the system design part. If you search for system design, simple like Google articles and all those, you'll find like system design is basically developing the whole architecture. For example, if you're developing a library management software, just developing the UI, the code to lock, unlock books, and all those. That is the normal software developer part. But to be able to host it in a server, to accept requests from users, to be able to save passwords in a database, to know all these things, this is system design. So that is, I think, the one of the differences. Another difference is definitely talking to teams. So as a small developer, you won't be expected to know which team to talk to and all those. You'll always be asking people, where do I get this information? Where do I get that information? As a more senior person, you'll be expected to know that this team does this, that team does this. This is supported by this team. For this related problems, we talk to that team. So these communication skills are also required for a SD2 or senior.
All right. So moving on to the next question. What do you think about the hype surrounding ML, machine learning?
Hype. If you do a little bit of machine learning, you definitely get to see that it's mostly hype, uh, as in the sense of the software developers don't really do much. ML is basically a research field. So most of the work is done by the researcher, as in the college PhDs, the college professors, and all that. ML in companies is basically just putting in algorithms and just waiting for it to run and then trial and error. So I feel like, yeah, it is definitely hyped, but some companies, like very minor companies, have very good, like even in Microsoft, there is some Microsoft Research, MSR group, which does very good this machine learning things. So they do it in a such a way that they file patents, they publish research papers and all those things. So that I think is real machine learning. But even in like my last team in Microsoft, we used to say we do machine learning, but that was not exactly machine learning. That was just putting in models from, like, take a research paper, see what model is there, try to code it out, and then see what is the result. If that doesn't work, pick up another research paper, do that. So hype is definitely there. Most of the things that you will see are machine learning are not really machine learning. They are just copying, pasting code and then trying to see which works. But in some teams, definitely there is machine learning. And how do you know who is doing machine learning, who is not doing machine learning? You see who is filing for more patents, who is publishing more research papers. They are doing the real machine learning.
Yeah, all right. Also, how has the how do I put it? How has the how different is the software development career? How is it different from your expectations? What were your expectations, and how is the actual software development career different from it?
Mm, one thing that I would say is people skills. I never expected people skills to be such a big part of software development, but it's really a very huge part of software development. So if you're like very strict about yourself, like for example, I wrote this code and I want this to be like this, and I want this to be merged and this to be in the code base, that will be like your life will become hell, because there will be tens of people with tens of different expectations, and they will comment tens of different things on your code, that put this opening bracket on the first line or the second line. For this, people will fight with you. So people skill is, I think, the one thing that I never expected to be so much useful. Now you should be able to have a proper relation with them, because you are in the same team. You need to be able to talk to them properly. You need to be able to explain yourself. And after that, you need to be able to maintain that relation, because you need to be able to work with them in future as well. So people, uh, the way like the way to talk to people, that is definitely something that I never expected to be this much important in software development. And as you want to proceed ahead with your like development in career, so you, as I said, right, communication is also important for higher level. So you need to be able to communicate with different teams and figure out the whole design and all that. So for that, people skill is also required. Sometimes people will not reply to you, like you'll message them, they'll not reply to you because they have got hundreds of things on their mind, and they'll fail to reply to you for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and you'll be frustrated, like why is this person like this, why is the who is the he's a president or something like. But if you go in that zone, you will never be able to succeed, because then you will always be like very much negative about yourself, very much negative about the world, and very much in like anger of everything, and that wouldn't work out. So what you need to be able to do is take a deep breath, think that they are also people. They are here to work. They are not here there to ruin your life. They just want to live in peace, and they are trying to do that the best that they know. So you need to be able to understand people. You need to be able to communicate with them. You need to be able to understand that even if they are not replying, that's not because they are ignoring you. That's because they have a lot of things on their plate as well. They are also humans. They want to live peacefully. They want to be happy. So if you're like the people skill part of it is definitely something that I think I ignored a lot. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Moving on to the next question. Uh, in college, you generally do a lot of side projects. During your day job, do you find time to do side projects?
I would say I changed a lot as a person. So as I said about people skill, right? I also realized that uh, at a certain point in my life, like at this point in my life, I'm satisfied with what I have. Like I'm in Microsoft. I have a good salary. Like I in my office, I do very good with projects and all these things. So I don't want to do anything more. I don't know. Like it depends on person to person. For me, like uh, that urge to do projects is not there anymore. So I do not want to find time for that. I want to explore other things. I want to read books. I want to play chess. I want to improve in other things. I don't know. I know many people who do find time for side projects and all. So that depends from person to person. And it's never like that's a very good dialogue. It's never a matter of time. It's always a matter of priorities. So if you want to find time, you will find time if it is like if it is a priority for you. So like there are 24 hours in a day for me also, for another person also who does his side projects in some other freelancer or something. So it's not that you can't find time. You can find time. It's just that, yeah, like I don't want to find that time. I want to spend that learning chess. I want to spend that reading some book. And yeah, so like depends on your priorities. But if you want, you can definitely find time.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
Then The next question is, does growth stop after working in a full-time job? I'm not sure what
Growth.
they mean by growth.
Okay. Okay, let's think. Okay. So growth has in, I'd say one thing would be learning different things. So that would never stop. Because what happens is, like if you're working in, let's say, any company, they would be using some sort of stack for everything. So like, for example, when I joined Microsoft last year, I joined Bing team. So we used to work on some like workflow designs and developing in C Sharp for some microservice architecture and learning about that. There also was some multi-threading and all that, but not that much. But then I recently switched to Azure in a embedded systems team. So here, what we mainly focus on like Linux, low-level development, or shell development for user interaction. So like the learning is always there. Like I don't think anyone in the industry who has been here for like even 20 years can say that they know everything. Like they don't need to learn anymore, or they don't need to grow in that sense. So growth will always be there. The industry changes very fast. Like the things that were used 2 years ago are not used now, and that's definitely a truth, and that will be the truth for the next 2 years and the next 2 years and the next 2 years. So it's changing so fast that you will always keep learning. If you remain in the same team for 4 or 5 years, maybe there will be phases. There will be like 2 years where you don't learn anything new because your systems are stable. But after that, the company will know, right, that this team has everything stable and everything done, so we need to do something more. So even as a person, as your manager or anyone would expect to do more. That learning part always is there. They'll take up new challenges, you'll learn something new, implement it, find some problems, Google everything. And yeah. As you are in your first year of programming, you will be the same in your 20th year of programming. That's for sure. Like you'll be Googling errors and all those things. And growth, as in if you are talking about like personal growth, then yeah, depends, right? If you are trying to find time for it or not. I have seen like people who are SD1 who are working till like 11 p.m. in the night. I'm like, why? Like, who do you want to showcase it to? Like, if you are really that much interested in your job, it's good. Like, if you are happy with that. But if you are sad with that, then for your personal growth, for your personal happiness, you need to balance office and home. Like, make a deadline. After 7 p.m., I'll not touch anything in office. Or after 6 p.m., I'll not touch anything related to office. And I'll do something on my own, or I'll talk to my family members or anything. So if you want personal growth, you'll have to definitely work on it. Because I've seen people struggle with it, and I don't know why. Like I never struggle with it. I have always been the person like 6:30 p.m. I've done with my office. I'll never touch it. So I've seen people struggle with it in their personal front, and then they'll be like I've talked to a few people who feel like depressed or something, but it's mostly I don't know why. Like I can't relate to that feeling. So I could never figure out why people don't find time for themselves. And then they will be like, yeah, like there is so much work. I don't know, like people should try to find time for themselves. And that is definitely on you. That is totally on you. My manager of my manager recently, like 2 3 weeks back, he got changed because I joined the new team. So he also joined the team recently, and he gave very good dialogue. It's not the work of Microsoft or the HR to maintain your work-life balance. It's your priority. It's your work to maintain your work-life balance. I'm not here to maintain your work-life balance. You are here to maintain your work-life balance. So if you think like that, then I think you can achieve a work-life balance and your personal growth and all that.
Wow, I think that's great advice. Anyway, moving on to the next question. So you publish multiple patents and file for multiple patents.
Yeah.
What does the process look like? Can you give us an insight into the process?
Okay. For me, it was a bit easier because what happens was if you know there is an SCSC cell, Student Entrepreneurship Support Cell in college. So they used to do, I don't know if they still do, they used to do this contest every year. So where you, like everyone goes and presents their ideas. You don't need to have any prototype or anything like that. You just go and present your idea and you talk about how you are thinking of implementing it. And then if your project idea they select, then they'll fund you, and then they'll also help you apply for a patent. So for the project part, I can say it's very simple to how you will do it if you are alone or if you are with your friends. So like the two patterns that I filed, right? Both of them were someone else's ideas. They reached out to me like for the SCSC cell, I want to present this. Let's go and present together, and we can like if it works out, let's develop it together. And like so we did it together, we made it, and then SCSSL helped us. So it's like there is some amount around like 1.5 lakh, I think, for the filing of patents, which the college funded because it was through SCSC. But I think if you develop something and later on go to SCSC, I think they'll be definitely helpful. Like uh, one thing I would like to say, people say that in college they don't get anything, but in college I think it's like you have to be more mature, you have to be more like independent. The professor will not come to you and tell you that this is the patent process, file it. You will have to say that, okay, I have made this and I want to file a patent for it. How do I do it? The college will provide for you. That I am definitely sure of. Like if you go to SASSL and say that I have this idea, I made this prototype, and I worked with these many people and we want to file a patent. Will you please fund us for this? Definitely they'll help you. So this part is something that I really like want to stress on. I like really think about it. Everyone should think about it. Like people, I have seen many people say that college did not provide me anything, or I did not gain anything from college and all those things. But I am someone who got everything from college. Like I say that whatever I got from college. So what happened was I never waited for the professor to tell me that I have this project, will you do with me or something. I went to every professor. Like I went to Siddharth Malu sir for astrophysics project. Sir, I want to do something with you. Is there? So he told me, okay, come to my lab. We'll do something. And I started doing with him. I went to Santosh Viskarma sir. Did something in his lab. I went to like Abhishek sir. I did like I filed a paper with him, his PhD student. So like if you are interested in college, you can get everything. But if you wait for the professors to tell you like, oh, this is how you file a research paper, or take this topic and do some research, you will never get anyone like that. So if you want to like file a patent or get to that, make something or participate in that SESC yearly contest. And if you have made something, that's like very, very much, that will increase your chances of getting funding from SESC. And the patent filing process, they'll do everything. You'll have to give a lot of information and all that, but that will be like very easy. The price around 1.5 lakh, they will pay. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the insight into that. So I think we are almost at the end of the questions. So as the last question, what is a memorable experience that you remember from college?
From college. Okay, one of those things will definitely be when Samyak came to me for this one of the patent projects. Like what happened was, he sent a mail to like all of the batch, and that I am working on this project, but I do not have any information. Will someone help me? What I did was it was like second week of first semester or something. I saw that oh, someone has messaged mailed something for some topic. I just googled that topic, found some articles, copy pasted 10 20 links, and like something some two lines from everything, and told him that okay, this is something that I found out and you can look into this. And I replied to him. He replied thanks, and after that I didn't care about it. 4 5 months down the line, he came to me and he was like, "Oh, you remember you told me about all those things? I presented that to SCSC and the idea got selected. Please let's do it together." And that was, I think, very much like very much surprising for me. Like someone I didn't talk to in all the first semester. I just replied to one mail long back and forgot about it. He comes to me and he's like, "Okay, let's do something together," and that was very like very happy feeling for me. I don't know if that's sad or what, but that's yeah, that's how it was. That is one of the things that I can immediately remember. Yeah, that.
Yeah, that was at least a funny experience. All right, with that, I think we are ending the session. If anyone has any, okay, I think there's a specific question in here. So the question is, how much the research papers in CSE matter in a CS? What? Okay, I
Systematic
think the
EU
question
student.
is, so if you're an EE student and you have CSE papers, will that help you getting selected for an
Yes,
internship?
sorry, was I not loud enough? I see someone has written, can you speak loud, please? Oh, sorry.
No, you are
I,
fine.
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, like if I was not loud, you could have just
So the
said, yeah,
question is, I think, regarding.
yeah, yeah. Okay, for an EE student, yeah. So
No, you are loud enough. You are loud enough.
it definitely, okay. Yeah, so it's definitely like a helps. It helps a lot. So if you're applying for a CSC company, having a research paper in CSC students is very, very good. So like for, you can say that you have worked something at a research level. So that is something that you have like acceptable in a journal. So if it is published in a journal, that's very, very good thing, because publishing in a, like research papers are of two kinds: publishing in a journal and publishing in a conference. Conference ones are like you don't need to be that thorough and all those things, but publishing in a journal requires everything and it is reviewed and all those things. So if you have in a journal, that's definitely very good sign and it will help you. And since you have worked on that, you will be able to explain it much better than explaining Gigi-Kestrow's algorithm, let's say. So if you have worked on something, you'll be able to explain what problems you faced and how you overcame it. Mainly, these are very generic questions. Like if whenever you go to any interview, they'll ask this definitely. So you worked on that project. Tell me something that you faced that was problematic and you overcame it. Tell me something that you are proud of, like you worked and you got very happy about it. So these things are very generic questions, and you'll be able to very easily answer them if you have worked on something. Are you thinking of higher studies? Higher studies, I thought of, but see, what is your goal from higher studies? That is the main thing that you should be aware of. So for example, for me, at first I thought I'll do higher studies, like I'll do MS, and I wanted to do in astrophysics actually. I was very much fascinated with astrophysics in my fourth year of college. So like every year of college, I had something. In second year, I was very much fascinated with programming. In third year, I was very fascinated with maths. I subscribed to like 20, 30 different maths YouTube channel, and I was like, I'll become a maths professor. In fourth year, I was very much fascinated with astrophysics, and I wanted to do MS in astrophysics actually after fourth year. But after I became like after I came to the job and all that, after 1 or 2 years of job, I thought I'll do MS. But after that, you become very lazy. Like for MS, you need to be very energetic. MS is extremely uh, extremely intensive curriculum. So, like, yeah, if you want to do MS, do it immediately after college, and when you have that energy and that enthusiasm, and later on, the goals also change, right? For me, the goal is now not to become a professor. Like, if you want to become a professor, doing a MS is very good thing. If you want to become a researcher, doing an MS is a good thing. For me, I'm happy with a software development job. I'm happy with being in a software company like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, wherever, and just do this normal everyday job. I don't want to be in MSR like Microsoft Research Group. So if I wanted to be there, I could have done MS. But depends on your goals. So if you want to be a researcher, if you want to be a professor, if you want to do those things, go for MS. And I would say go immediately after college. And if not, then leave it. Like MS is not really helpful in your normal software development job in any way.
All right. If no one has any more questions, I think we'll end the session.
Yeah. Someone has raised your hand. If you want to
Oh,
say
that's
something,
me.
just okay. Okay then, yeah.
Okay then. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining. Yeah,
Yeah,
this was a
thank you.
really great session. There was a lot of great advice. So thanks a lot for spending your time with us.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Thank you for organizing this. People, like if you are in non-CSC branch or even in CSC branch, please, please, please just try to be active, try to get something done. Like I know the people will say this is the time that you want to enjoy life and all that. Do that, definitely do that. But also please try to like work on the process of gaining something, like creating projects and all those things. That will definitely help you, and you will not regret it. Definitely not regret it after 4 or 5 years from now. And yeah, like if you want to like anytime if you want to like talk or something, you can connect with me anywhere, and we'll be happy to talk to you. But please try to put in the effort first. Yeah, thank you for organizing this.
All right. With that, I will. Okay. Let me. I am on mobile. Can someone stop the recording, Nitin? Can you do it?
Where is it?